Hello and welcome to Coffee with Jenny B. It's conversations over coffee. It's about community, connections, what brings me joy, and everything in between. I'm your host, Jenny Sacco-Bak. Life is an adventure. At least we hope it is when we decide to explore the world and move outside of our comfort zone. I remember when I was 16 traveling to Poland for the very first time. And I was scared because I'd never been on an airplane before. I didn't know what to expect. And yet I loved the experience of traveling, of meeting new people, new experiences. And throughout my life, I've tried a number of different things. I used to run half marathons. I'm a Zumba instructor. So just putting yourself out there and thinking, what can I do? And if I don't do it well, does it matter? It's the experience that we're looking for. And my daughter was saying the other day about my granddaughter. She has so much stuff. Mom, why don't you get her something that is an experience? Because really, she's not going to remember her Barbie, but she's going to remember that we took her miniature golfing, or that we went to Thunder Rapids, or whatever it is. It's those memories that we keep in our mind and our heart and our soul. My guest today is someone who knows a lot about adventure, whether it's traveling, whether it's creating things, and just enjoying life to its fullest. His name is David Jachetta. He is an entrepreneur, a content creator, and, as I mentioned, a world traveler. Please help me welcome David. Hey, David.
Hey, thanks for having me. That was a beautiful introduction.
Well, thank you. So happy to have you here.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here.
Great. Now, before we get into our conversation, I do want to mention how we first met. So I remember that, of course, we both know Maddie Thompson, who owns Mad Agency. And Maddie was talking about doing a sip session. And it's an idea of, going to a restaurant, a coffee shop, a bar, it doesn't matter what it is. It's free to attend. You can buy your own beverage. And then they have a panel of experts that are talking about whatever the topic is at that time. And I remember thinking, oh, is that ever interesting? It was at an Indulge Cafe and Bakery on Main Street. And I had never been there before. And so I thought, okay, perfect. Attending something brand new, learning something from a panel of experts, and visiting this bakery cafe. So I remember it was a summer afternoon, I guess early evening maybe. And I was there and I was standing at the back. And of course you were there, and Adam and Janelle. And you were talking about various topics, I guess, when it comes to being a business owner, how you got started in business, and maybe some takeaways for the audience. And what was the question that I asked you?
Well, that was the first time I went to one as well, too. So I didn't know that was your first one. But the question you asked me was, if I wanted somebody like in one of my classes to maybe follow the same journey or start their own business, something like that, like how could I do that? How could I inspire them to do that?
Right.
And I said, bring someone in who they would relate to. And then afterwards we got to talking
and I asked you to come speak to my class.
Yeah. No, that was awesome. One of those like meant to be there moments like we were talking about before.
Yes, absolutely. And I remember that both you and Adam Fiskin came in, and you did such a great presentation to my class, and it was PR fundamental students. And so that's the direction that they want to go in. They want to go into communication marketing, maybe even being a content creator themselves. Speaking of which, how did you get started in being a content creator?
So it kind of found me. I never wanted to be like a content creator, or a lot of people think of the term like influencer or something like that. So I actually started a project in university, and I didn't really know what it was at that time, and it led into me starting a business. And at that time, it was all about selling clothing and promoting mental health and well-being. It was something that was really important to me because I had gone through struggles in my life, and I started to open up about those things, and I realized that a lot of other people were struggling. And so I went on Instagram, started sharing my message, and I kind of started to enjoy it a little bit. I liked creating content, and for me, it was all about the community building aspect to it. And so that's really how I got started into it, and kind of, 5 years later, here we are today.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of the, I guess maybe key moments, or were there sort of like aha moments, like you said, how you discovered that this is something you really enjoy doing? So what was it that really kind of sparked your interest to really keep going with that?
There was definitely a lot of them, but one of them was when I started to reach people that didn't live in Winnipeg anymore. So when I started to create content, there was people in Australia, the UK, Germany, Italy, like all of these people started sending me messages, and they were like, hey, I really like what you're talking about. Like, I can feel that, and I resonate with it. And I realized that posting on social media, it expanded kind of my voice and my impact to people beyond just the city that I lived in and the community that I was in. And that was kind of like the moment for me where I was like, okay, this is really cool, and this is something I want to keep doing for sure. Yeah.
You know what, I like what you are doing, because obviously I follow you and I see your posts.
Yeah.
It's very organic. It's not to say that you maybe don't have an idea, okay, today I'd like to post about, XYZ, which is fine, because it's always good to have a plan.
Yeah, some structure sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just a happenstance where I want to talk about, I think it had to do with furniture.
Oh,
okay. So
how I got a free couch. Yeah. Well, first off, for you to say that it feels like organic, authentic, and things like that, I think that's something that everyone struggles with, like how to be your authentic self online. It's something that I've really struggled with on trying to do that. So to even hear that, I'm like, awesome. Yeah. I feel that. But yeah, no, for the video you saw about getting this free couch.
Yes.
Creating content just opens up opportunities for you that you never could have had before. And with that story specifically, I moved into my new condo in Calgary, and I had someone deliver my couch, and he was kind of asking me what I was doing and what I did for work. And I told him, and he was like, hey, I would love for you to create some content for me in exchange for, some money. And we ended up working together a little bit more, and it turns out that I got my couch for free, which is an opportunity that just comes out of nowhere that you wouldn't expect, right?
Yeah. But you didn't go into it thinking, okay, well, I'm going to get a free couch out of this.
No,
it was just, it was the story that you were wanting to share about your experience with this company, right?
Yeah, no, it was totally random. It just happened out of nowhere. And yeah, it was really cool. Like, a lot of people, even when you think about creating content, you're thinking about, okay, how can this help my business, or how can this help somebody else? And then there's like these indirect things that happen, like, oh, maybe you get something, or maybe you get to work with a brand that you really like, or a product that you really like. And it just so happened that the couch was the one for me. Yeah, it was cool.
I'll always remember that you were like a kid in a candy store, where you were just like so excited about this free couch, right?
I mean, how can you not be excited for a free couch? And it was something that I needed, and it was really cool. And now it's a relationship that I have as well too. I still talk to them, and I'm still asking them, hey, how are you doing? And their story on how they got started. It was really cool. It's
interesting you mentioned about relationships, because relationships don't happen automatically. And sometimes it takes a lot of work. You talk about, like, first dates or even first friendships. Sometimes it's really difficult for that to happen. And I think sometimes we try so hard because we want it to happen. And yet just by having some fun and, just being yourself, it sometimes can happen the way that it's happened. And now you've got this relationship with this person that it's probably going to continue going forward, nothing to do with a couch.
And I think that comes back to the authenticity thing.
Yes.
Like you said, being yourself, when you're truly showing who you are and your values, there's people who resonate with that. And you could be friends with somebody who lives in Vancouver. You could be friends with someone who lives in Australia. And that's the power of the apps that we have today, for sure.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, it connects us in a way, and even virtually, because you said that you don't live in Winnipeg right now, but you're all over the place. I know that I want to talk about your trip to Costa Rica in a second, but but that's great that you have the ability that you have the opportunity to do that, to travel, to explore, to find out what it is that you're looking for. And the fact that, you know, sometimes we get so stuck that we want this idea and it's not working for us, versus just kind of letting go of the idea of it and just go out there and see what happens and let opportunities come our way.
No, I absolutely agree with that. And it's not a linear process at all, but it's cool when you kind of trust the unknown, you could say. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about your being a world traveler. Now, I don't think you've traveled the whole world, but it's a start.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Costa Rica. What was it about Costa Rica that, you know, on your bucket list, or was it just a kind of an accidental, oh, I think I'll go here?
Yeah, so it actually started right after I graduated university. I went to Thailand by myself.
Oh, okay.
So I went over there. I was working a job at the time, and I quit my job to go all in on my business. Went over to Thailand, had an awesome time, went down to Bali for a little bit, and just realized how much I loved the tropical kind of lifestyle over there. And I found that those people as well too, they were so happy. And I was always wondering, like, well, what makes these people so happy? And it was the way that they were approaching life. And so when I had came back to Canada after a few months, I really wanted to find that on this side of the world, because the time change was so difficult to continue my work over there.
Oh, yeah.
So I was kind of just feeling into it. It was more of an intuition thing more than anything. I was like, let's try Costa Rica. And I was going to stay there for 2 weeks, and it ended up being a year and a half. Yeah.
It's funny how that happens.
It was. No, and it completely, like, trusting randomness, the unknown, and yeah, things just kind of happened there for me, and I was very grateful for it.
Yeah, no, you know what, and that's actually on my bucket list, to go to Costa Rica one day, and I know I'll get there. I don't know when, but it's always been at the top of my mind. Just, you know, every time I hear about someone going there, it's like, oh, I want to go there.
I am the one who influences people to go there, so maybe we're having this conversation for a reason. There
okay, I need to book a trip.
Yeah, no.
Now, pickleball.
Yes.
Pickleball in Costa Rica, of all places. How did that happen?
Well, I lived beside a pickleball center,
okay,
so that was one thing. So
okay.
I was an athlete growing up. Like, I played hockey for 20 years, and after I stopped playing competitive sports, I was kind of missing something like that in my life. And I think a lot of us are very work driven. Like, that's kind of like a hustle culture, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
And I definitely was doing that for a while, where I was working really hard, and I was still working out, and I had the exercise outlet, but I wanted to, like, have a little bit of competition and do something. And so I tried out pickleball, ended up loving it. And it's a sport where you have to be very present. And that's why I really liked it, because if you go out there and your head's thinking about something else,
and they get hit in the head.
You might get hit in the head. They're going to beat you, which I hate to lose. So, and yeah, so I just felt a very, like, presence in that sport, and it made me kind of really focus on what I was doing. And it's a community aspect as well too. You meet a lot of amazing people, and you get to have some fun. So that's kind of how that all happened.
Well, you know, it's interesting, because I always said I'm never playing pickleball. Just the idea, I don't know.
I said that too.
I can't wrap my head around it. But listening to you talk about it, you know, I may need to try it one day, and who knows, maybe I'll get hooked as well.
I guarantee you will get hooked. It's one of those things that you don't have to have any prior knowledge to it. You can pick up a paddle and just kind of get started with it. And like I said, the community aspect of it is just so amazing, and there's amazing people there.
I can imagine. Now, in my intro, I mentioned that I've run half marathons, and I think in my lifetime, I've run about 10 half marathons.
Wow.
And I used to belong, or there was a program the Arthritis Society put on called Joints in Motion. So you pick a destination. It could be Costa Rica, could be, you know, Great Wall of China, could be Honolulu. So it's either you're doing a walk, it's a 10K, it's a half marathon, full marathon, whatever it is. And so you pick a destination, you pick the entry of what you want to do, and then you fundraise, and then that pays for your airfare and everything to go to this destination. So I remember my first one was in 2005, and it was San Diego. And oh my gosh, San Diego, I immediately fell in love with it. And I remember driving down the highway through La Jolla, and I remember looking up at the cliffs, and they were houses on top of the cliffs. But you know what I remember the most is the stargazer lily. So it's such a powerful smell, but every time I smell it, it makes me think of La Jolla and San Diego. Anyway, I digress. But so that was my first half marathon.
What a place to do it.
Well, it was actually wasn't in San Diego. It was, I forget the county just outside of
Somewhere
San Diego.
over there. Yeah.
But I remember it was in January and it was 80 degrees. And so I'm like, Canadian group are, you know, we're wearing shorts and, you know, tank top and everything. And then people that actually lived in California were wearing, like, you know, mitts and sweaters and boots and then they look at us and you know,
yeah, you can
crazy
spot
people.
a Canadian pretty easily. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did San Diego. I did Jamaica, which was a really cool experience.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was really cool. So tell me about your experience with your 100-kilometer run.
Yes. So it didn't start with all of that. I, you know, started running as well too and doing small distances and things like that. And it really started again as something just for my mental health and well-being. Fell in love with it. I also ran a couple marathons over the last few years, one in Costa Rica as well too.
Okay.
And then I was driving with a few friends to go do a trail run in Calgary. And they were talking about running the Grand Canyon, this thing called Rim to Rim.
Oh my gosh.
And I honestly, I'd heard about it before, but I didn't know like all about it. And so I just said yes. It was one of those things, I was like, yes. I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
I'm going to die, but I'm going to do it.
Yes. And so we just did it. It was about 3 weeks ago now. And we went out there, we started at 4 a.m. and we ran into the canyon, ran all of it. We ended up taking a wrong turn.
Oh no.
There was a trail that was closed. We took a wrong turn, so we didn't know what was happening with that. But we circled back, and I remember coming up the North Rim, and it was just absolutely beautiful. It was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And by the time we had got to the top, I was mentally broken. I was like, okay, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
And then we had to go back. And
oh no.
So
that's the thing, you have to.
Yeah, we had to get back. And so we went all the way back up. We took a little bit of a break and we came back down and we turned on our headlamps and we started running through the night.
Oh, wow.
My headlamp died, so we had only 2 at one point. And I just remember being in the middle of the Grand Canyon and it was nighttime and we looked up at the stars and it was one of the most beautiful things ever. But we ended up finishing at 4 a.m. the next day.
Oh my gosh.
It was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, but also one of the most rewarding things. And I was so grateful that I said yes to it, even though I was questioning it while I was doing it. But it was an incredible experience. And I think that humans and what the human body can really do, like there's no limits to it. And I think it's really a mind thing where we do limit ourselves in everything that we do. And when you kind of get over that fear and self-doubt that we all have within us, we can accomplish amazing things. And that translates into life, into business, into relationships, whatever it may be.
I agree with you 100%. I actually have been to the Grand Canyon and
it's beautiful, hey?
It is absolutely gorgeous. But now I'm thinking, looking down into the canyon and the fact that you actually ran into it and then through it and came out alive is amazing.
Out alive is a big one, yeah, for sure. And it was hot. It was very hot while we were doing that. So it was super challenging for that as well too, but it was beautiful.
Yeah. And I agree about the mind over matter because, you know, sometimes we question ourselves, you know, and even with our bodies, you know, our bodies know what's going on before our mind does. And our mind is trying to tell our bodies, it's like, no, you're too tired, or you're not this, you're not that. And so you listen to your mind versus listening to your body, you know, and then they say your second brain is actually your gut, you know, and when you think about your gut instinct, it's like, oh, you know, maybe I shouldn't do this. But having said that, you probably thought, oh, I don't know if I should do this, but then you did it anyway. Yeah.
Well, one of the things for me, like we'll use running as an example.
Okay.
Whether you're running 100 kilometers or you're running 5 kilometers, everyone who's gone out for a run, they know in your head you're questioning it. In the first little bit, you're thinking, maybe I should stop now, or why am I doing this? It doesn't matter the distance.
First 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, you're huffing and puffing.
Exactly.
And then you get your second wind and you're like coasting. Yeah.
You just got to break through that little barrier, and that might happen multiple times during the run. And so running for me really became this life teacher, where I also thought like, hey, where else is this happening to me? Like in the work that I'm doing or things in my life that are challenging. And maybe there's that little bit of, hey, like I want to take a break, I want to stop. And sometimes you do need to listen to that. But there's other times where it's like, okay, let's keep going. And then maybe it becomes more beautiful as you continue on the journey.
Well, and I like the comparison between you as a runner, because even though you could be running in a group, but you're still running for yourself. And so you're still thinking about, whether you have headphones and music or it's just the solitude or whatever it is. So when you're comparing it to pickleball, for instance, which is totally different from being a runner, but it's the idea that you're present, you're paying attention. When you're running, you may not necessarily be 100% present in terms of your surroundings. I mean, obviously you have to be careful that you're not aware. Yes, aware. But, for me, personally for myself, I remember whenever I had a problem that I needed to solve, or I was struggling over ideas for whatever, I remember going for a run. And once you get over that kind of that hump of, am I doing this? Should I stop? Once you're over that and then you're running, and things for me anyway, not magically solved themselves, but at least at the end, I was able to come up with an idea. It's like, okay, now I know I have some clarity in terms of the direction that I want to go in.
No, we're very similar. And I knew this before, but we are very similar. For me as well, too. It's almost like a meditative state once you start going, and people think I'm crazy for saying that sometimes because you're physically exerting yourself. But for me, it's turning off your phone. It's getting away from the technology for a little bit. And like you said, going out into a place and getting clarity. And I've solved a lot of things in my mind, or just needed to take a break and come back to something. And it's really helped me as well, too. So yeah, spot on.
Yes. Now, but when you think about people that push themselves, those what do they call them?
Ultra marathon runners.
Right? I always thought, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Are you trying to prove something? Is it a competition? And a lot of times it's a competition with yourself.
Absolutely.
And I never felt that I needed to compete with anybody else. But for me, it was like, it's that personal best. It's like I want to do better every single time. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, but you always want to do better. And when you don't hit that, sometimes it's a lesson. It's like, okay, well, I didn't. And am I a failure? It's like, well, no, I guess, maybe I was tired. Maybe I didn't sleep well last night. Maybe, I ate something I shouldn't have been eating. I have a cramp in my leg, whatever it is. There's a point where you either push yourself past the point. It's like, I know I'm hurting, but I need to finish and I'm going to push through. And then you are hurt, or you realize, okay, I'm hurt and I want to go forward, but I need to stop, because if I go any further, I know in my mind it's going to be harder for me. So for you, at what point, do you kind of struggle with whether you should push through or kind of hold back?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's kind of like contextual, where it's in the moment type thing, but there's definitely times where you need to stop and listen to your body and do those sorts of things. And then there's other times to push through. But yeah, again, it comes back to just a life teacher, where everything's a learning opportunity and you can always learn through every experience that you're going through. And with running, there's so many times where I've failed in runs that I've done before, where I wanted to do something and I didn't do it. And you still can try it again tomorrow, or you can try it again in a few months, whatever it may be. But for me personally, I've always been someone who has that self-determination and wanting to push through. But I think also it's taught me to, hey, you don't always need to do that as well too. So maybe it's also been a little bit of both for me. Yeah.
I think about whether you continue doing something, with running, for instance. I mean, if you hurt yourself and you couldn't run anymore, obviously you would have to stop and you would pick up something else. For me, I made a decision that after 15 years of teaching Zumba, I've decided that I'm going to stop. And initially, when I made that decision, I I was kind of frustrated. I was kind of sad. I was, disappointed. And I thought, do I really want to stop? Because I really enjoyed doing it, obviously, for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
But then I thought, why do I need to continue doing this if I can stop, open myself up to other possibilities? And I don't know what those possibilities are, because you never know what the universe has in store for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you were talking about being present, that's what we need to be, is we need to be present and open to possibilities and being aware of the signs that are around us, or the people that we're meeting, or those connections that we meet out of nowhere, and that are relationships that can turn into something even more magical than we ever thought we could ever have dreamt of.
I'm big on trusting your intuition with those sorts of things, and like you said, trusting your gut and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's happened to me multiple times in my journey as well too, even with business. Like, there's been things that I'm doing in business and I've enjoyed it for a little while, and then it comes to a point where I don't enjoy it as much anymore. I can just feel that there's a different path opening up, and the signs are there, and the universe is telling me, hey, go in this direction. I'm nudging you there. And sometimes you just have to be open to listening, and not be too rigid with things as well too.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for someone who is just starting out, maybe graduating from school, whether it's high school, post-secondary education, wanting to either go travel in the world, or start a business, or be, a content creator, or whatever, what advice would you have to share with someone who wants to start out and be someone?
Yeah, so I think first off, the vision that you have, if you feel that, it's there for a reason, and it's something that you might not know the how yet right now, but you can develop the why. And if you start to develop the why on why you want to do that, you're going to have very strong reasons to start taking some action towards it. And I think that it all starts with asking yourself, what do I really love and what am I good at? And those two questions, I'm big on ikigai as well too. There's other two questions.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, like, what does the world need? What can I be paid for? That's what I asked myself. And it gave me this compass on what to really start to go after. And I think a big thing as well too is just, it doesn't always have to be the first thing. Like, you might choose something and think it's that for a little while, and then it could lead you into something else, just like what we've been talking about here. But you can start with something and lead yourself into the next thing. And I think we all get caught up in, I need to have it all figured out before I take action, before I get started. And if you can just take the first step, just like a run, you take that first step and you start to build some momentum, and you start to meet people, and the signs start to come out of nowhere. That's my advice to anyone who's willing to start. And you have to believe in yourself as well too, because we all have self-doubt, we all have fear, and these things prevent us from going after our goals, our visions, and the things that we want in our life. And if you believe in yourself, even if it's just like a little false sense of belief, and you tell yourself like, hey, I can do this, or someone else I know has done this before, like, why not me? That's a great starting point. So I think it starts with your mind and asking yourself like ikigai questions.
Yes, I love that. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. And when I went through the questions with the ikigai, it solidified that I'm doing exactly what I need to do. And that's a good place to start if you're not quite sure where to go, because you can ask those questions and it'll tell you right away, okay, well then I shouldn't be doing that, because, like, say for instance, the example of those singing competitions, right? I know I can sing, and does the world need what I'm doing, but can I make money on it? Well, maybe you think you can sing, but maybe you're not a good singer. So then do you still pursue it, even though the signs are telling you not to? Versus you try something and it's like, okay, well, I can't really make money on it, but can I still do it? And that can be a good reason to do it, because maybe the world needs something of what you're giving that, but it doesn't necessarily always have to be about money.
Exactly.
But it's understanding that.
I was just about to say that as well too, which is why sometimes I don't like to add in the money section to it. Like, it could just be for fulfillment. And that's something that I've also had to kind of, learn in my journey as well too, that it doesn't always need to be about how much money can I make doing this? Or is this a business thing or something like that? Like sometimes it's just, I got to fill my cup too. And I want to do some things that I like to do, just like everybody else. And yeah, so I totally agree with that.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, David, for being here and sharing your story and sharing your love of travel and giving us a little bit into, who you are and, what drives you and also what fills your cup. I really appreciate.
Thank you so much for having me here. And yeah, it was one of those things that we met for a reason. So I'm so grateful for that.
Me too.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So this has been Coffee with Jenny B on the Multicultural channel. I'm your host, Jenny Sacco-Bak.